Hello and welcome everyone. This is our webinar, Enhancing Efficiency, the IronRidge Design Assistant now on our Webstore. I'm super excited to welcome our speakers today and all of you. It is Tony Lenh, he is the digital product lead of IronRidge, and Amber Mars, he is BayWa's very own e-commerce manager. I'm super excited to have you. While we all sign up, maybe Amber, I can just hand it over to you for some housekeeping and for welcoming.
Yeah, hello, welcome everyone. I'm Amber Mars. I'm the manager of e-commerce at BayWa r.e. Thank you for joining today. While some folks are still logging in, we'll take time for housekeeping. We want to let everyone know that they can use the Q&A for questions. We will be monitoring throughout the webinar. And like Daniela mentioned, today we are joined by Tony Lenh from IronRidge, and we're going to be learning about the IronRidge Design Assistant, which is now available on the BayWa r.e. web store. But first, here's a few upcoming events from BayWa that we'll be participating in.
Thank you so much, Amber. And by the way, I completely forgot to introduce myself. My name is Daniela Schwartzman. I'm the Marketing Relationship Manager of BayWa, and I'll be guiding also through this webinar today. I'll be taking your Q&As and make sure that all your questions are being asked. So please familiarize yourself with the button on the bottom and put in your questions so I can ask them. So what's happening in September 2024? We have lots of great training opportunities for you. We have a webinar come up with Silfab and BayWa talking about domestic content. We have various Power 3 trainings coming up in Wisconsin and at our Eagan branch. So, and more is planned actually. So make sure you subscribe to our email list and also check out the links in the chat. They will tell you a little bit more what BayWa can do for you and how we can support, and also familiarize yourself with our web store. If you haven't had a chance, please click on the link, sign up, and then you can actually use all these wonderful features, including the design tool that we're talking about today on our web store. Perfect. Let's dive right in. If we could learn a little bit about you, could we have the first poll question, please? So the first poll question is, what is your company type? We just want to know who you are. Are you distributor, installer, homeowner, or other? So you can vote right now. It's a live poll. We see things moving. So that's not surprising that installers, this webinar is for everyone, especially for our customers installers using the design tool. So the numbers are still moving, but it is pretty clear, mostly installers. It looks like, yes, so nothing surprising here, really. So let me end the poll and see the results. So 70% installers, distributors, and no homeowners and others, not surprising. All right, let's have the second question related to today's webinar. Can we launch the second one? Yes. So we would like to know, what do you like about your current design tool? So this is an open-ended question, so you can just like type in what it is that you like. I hope this poll question is working, because so far I haven't seen any responses come in. So on my end, I can not see actually the responses. Maybe that will happen once I end the poll. So keep putting in your answers, please. So let's see some of the answers. I can't see the answers on my end, but if we will work on this in the background, and I'll post them in the chat. What it is, Tony, as you go along, I'll point to one thing or the other. Sorry about that we can't see that live right now, but we'll get you the answers as we go along with our webinar. All right. So without further ado, Tony, the floor is yours.
So I think I'm actually going to start here. So I am going to show you what it looks like when you log into our web store. So once you are logged into your account, you will see that there is a link here to go directly to the IronRidge Design Assistant. So once you click that button, you'll be taken to the IronRidge side, which I'm going to turn over now to Tony so that he can share from his end what it will look like for you once you click that button.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone, for joining. I appreciate you guys having me here. Just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Tony Lenh. I'm the digital product lead here at IronRidge, and I'm really excited to go over our design assistant tool and how we've connected with BayWa. So let me share my screen. Let me know when that is up for everyone. I think it should be sharing. Is that correct?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Perfect. All right. So I did have an agenda that I wanted to go over, and this is essentially just a quick overview around how to create a design assistant account, navigating our design assistant website, connecting to BayWa, and then demonstrating how to use our design assistant tool by creating a project, and then pushing that IronRidge bill of materials to the BayWa web store. And then I will be handing it back over to Amber and Daniela to show how it looks from their perspectives. Okay. All right. So the first...
Tony, I have a few very brief answers that might be helpful from the previous poll. I want to inject here: quick and easy, fast, unique, easy to install. So that's all, along the lines of facilitating the process, making it faster, making it better, making it easier.
Awesome. I think what we have here, what we're going to be displaying, will be in line with a lot of what users are enjoying with their current design tool. So hopefully it doesn't stray too far away. So the first step around creating an account is going onto our website, ironridge.install.com. When you get here, what you'll see is a sign in section, but what you'll notice below here is going to be a create an account link. You would just click on that. When you click on this, it'll populate a template for you to fill out. So you can just fill out your information here and then create an account. When you create that account and click on that button, it's going to send you off a verification email. And what it'll look like is something like this, right? It'll show you that you need to verify your email address, and you can do so by clicking this verify button there. Once it's verified, we're going to be asking some additional information around where the company is located or where you're located, right? Country, city, state, zip code, phone number, what best describes you as a employee. And then a little bit of a survey question around how you heard about us and what your goals are as a solar professional, whether that's creating a proposal, permit packs, just generating a bill of materials, getting some additional education. We offer all of that. And then some additional company information here. And once that's completed, you will get to this landing page where it's going to show you a bunch of our tiles that you can launch into, one of them being on-demand training and the other one being our design assistant tool. So to launch our design assistant tool, you just click on this Open My Project section. You would then launch onto this page here. And this is the first page of our design assistant here. This is what we call the My Projects page. And on the My Projects page, what's neat about it is that any projects that you create on our tool will live here. So anytime you create a new project and you need to access it for whatever reason, you can always launch your design assistant account and it'll live here for you to go back and make any adjustments as needed. So the first thing I wanted to do was connect our BayWa account. And to do that, we would just click on the icon here. It should be your initials. And then you would click on Manage Account. When you click on that Manage Account, it'll go on this page here where it's going to show you some partner permission information. One of them is going to be BayWa. So to connect account, you would just click on this button and then type in your credentials. And the credentials should last you about 30 days. What essentially will happen after 30 days will be you just have to re-enter that information again. And then once you're logged in, it'll tell you when that credential is going to be expired and when you'll need to go back and retype in that information. Okay. All right. So that's going to be the first important part in connecting your BayWa account to our design assistant tool to be able to utilize the feature that we're going to be discussing today. So now I want to go over a quick walkthrough around one of our softwares that we offer here. And to do that, we have this design button and we have a design tool for each of our system types. So we have a flush mounted system, an attached flat roof, which is essentially a tilt mounted, a ballasted system, and a ground based system. The BayWa integration will work for any of these tools here, but I'm just going to go over pitched roof for this example. Okay. The first thing you'll need to do is type in an address, the address of the project that you're going to be working on. Hitting this identifier, it'll pull up a Google image on the location, and then you can configure your project. At this point, it's going to start the design phase of your project here. And we do have some benefits around what we offer and why our tool is so great. It does a very quick bill of material. It obviously is now connected to BayWa so that you can get that bill of materials without having to create secondary projects. It's connected to our internal engineering. So everything is based off of our engineering, making it easier to design a project without any guesswork. And we also provide relevant documents once your design is completed. So
there's a question here.
Sure.
How does the design assistant really support the design process?
Oh, yeah. So essentially what I just mentioned is it provides a really quick bill of materials. I think that was one of the things for the open question that people liked, right? It's a quick design. We provide all engineering into our tool. So it shows you essentially what you're allowed to do and what you aren't allowed to do. So it takes all the guesswork out around trying to figure out spans and things like that to design a project. We incorporate that into the tool already. And then once you're done with the process, we provide a bunch of documentation that'll help support with submitting into an ASJ. So we do provide quite a bit of content with our tool.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Okay, so the first section is going to be the project information. Here you can select a project name. So internally, we did notice that there was a lot of distributors and installers, mostly installers that are on this call today. And for each installer, they're going to be naming their project a little differently based off of what they prefer, right? Maybe it's some variation of a version in a project number, for example. So you can always change your name here. Let's say it's project 1, right? Or the Lenh residence, for example. A lot of installers will name it that way. Then we'll go into selecting the ACE code, the risk category. And if there are any questions as we're going along the tool, we have these information bubbles here as well. that'll help describe which each of these fields are supposed to be. Okay. And then selecting a panel is pretty straightforward. We can just type in what we want to use for our project. I'm just going to be selecting a random Canadian solar panel here. We also provide some additional information and details on what will work with what clamp, for example. So any additional details, you can just click there. I'm going to just select this one. Save project information. When you save your project, you'll notice that we'll provide all the dimensions of that module that gets manually entered into our database. If there is a panel that you want to use for your project that isn't in the tool currently, you can always reach out to our tech support team at techsupport@ironridge.com. Send that cut sheet over to our tech support team and we'll get that added into the tool pretty quickly. But once this section is completed, we'll move on to the environmental conditions, where it's going to auto-populate snow load, wind speed, and SDS, which is a seismic value. This is based off of the address that we entered in. So we are connected to ATC Hazard, which provides you environmental conditions into our tool. So it should automatically populate based off of the address that you sent in. So that's one of the smart features that we have into the tool that'll populate it for you. You will, however, have to select the exposure category, which is based off of the specific location of where you're going to be installing this project. So if you have any questions around what this means, you can always click on that information bubble. But just to summarize, B essentially is a residential area. C will be open terrain, right? Somewhere like a farm area. And D is more unobstructed, close to the water, hurricane-prone regions, things like that. The next section is going to be building and roof information. This is where you're going to be specifying your roof information here. So you can select the different roof materials that you might be installing on. I'll just select comp shingle because that's probably the most popular. And then we have a roof attachment drop-down menu here as well. So this drop-down menu is going to be dynamic based off of what you've selected previously. So we're never going to be showing any tile attachments while you're selecting a comp shingle roofing material, right? Because it wouldn't make sense to do so. So it's smart enough to understand that we'll just select flash view in this situation or hug, right? And then if you have any questions around the components that we've selected, you can just click on that little icon here as well. It's dynamic in that way that it's going to show you the information from the attachment that you selected. Okay. And then attachment hardware is just going to be the component that connects the attachment to the rail. So it's going to default to square, but you have the ability to change it to T-bolt as well. These are going to be accessory components. If you need a conduit mount, you can do so here. Conduit penetration flashing will also be offered as well. And a specific gravity should be selected here. The next section is going to be the roof planes default. So for the most part, I would assume that in a residential project is just going to be one single roof, or it's going to be the same slope for whichever plane you're going to be installing on. So I'll select the roof slope here, and then we break it down in a way where we show you increments of 1 degree, but we also show you roof pitches as well. So I'll just select that. Then you can also select rafter spacing as well. And then on this section, you have the ability to select your stock lengths. So right now we have a 168 and a 204. So I'm going to select that. And it'll default to cutting those rails in half to help save on additional rails, essentially, and save on waste. We can also select the type of rail. It'll default to XR100, but you could be in a situation where that's not going to be necessary. So you can always change it to whatever floats your particular project here. Okay. Down here is going to be the roof planes section, and it's going to pull in all the information that we just entered under the roof planes default, right? But you do have the ability to change it as needed. If you have multiple roof planes, you can always add them as well. But I'll just stick with one for this example. And same thing for roof sections. If we have multiple roof sections, we can add additional roof sections as well. So let's say that we have two faces we want to put modules on. I will do 2 rows of 5 on one of them for this example. And then maybe I will do 1 row of 4 on another one. And as you see that I'm adding modules into the system, on the top right on this dynamic ribbon, it's going to update the information dynamically. So as I'm changing things on the tool and saving it, you can see the values will update based off of what I've entered. Okay. And just to touch on this tool section really quickly, there is the ability to add and remove modules. So if I started off with a larger grid here, this grid tool allows you to add, remove, and toggle. Toggle essentially will turn on modules that are off and turn off modules that are on. And you can also add them by just clicking and dragging the space. We also have some additional features that I will touch on really quick, like dimensional crosshairs. So if I needed to know how large this module array is and how far the gaps are, you can do that by just measuring with these crosshairs. Okay. We also have the ability to change the rail orientation. So we'll default to east-west, but we can change it to north-south. We'll flip the rails in this direction. And we have the ability to rotate the panels to landscape as needed. I'll rotate this one just to make it a little different. We also offer camo, which is essentially a skirt that we have that you can select that tool, and then the tools, the grid tools are the same here. So I just change the editor mode to contour and then grid tools to add, and then you would just click on the panels in which you can add the contour. So the tool is smart in a way where contour is a wraparound skirt, and it knows that you can't add it into the east and west sides of the array because of the clamp that we're using. You're only allowed to add it on these sides if you're using an invisible end clamp, which we aren't using in this design. So it will tell you when you're hovering over this why it's disabled. So we would just change it into a camel clamp, which is our hidden end clamp, and then these tools will populate, allowing you to add them to the east and west sides of your array. Okay. So once I'm happy with how my arrays are set up, I can then move on to the spans and forces section. So on this page, it's going to show you the maximum spans of the rails here individually. So for example, if I am looking to install a 6-foot span, I can type in 6 foot for portrait here. And then you'll notice that the values will change. Based off of my updates. Another thing I want to mention is a lot of times we're probably not going to be installing on zone 3 of a roof, which makes XR10 a plausible solution here. So if I know this is the case and I'm not going to be installing in zone 3 of a roof anyway, I can move my design to XR10, and you can see that the pricing on the components and the cost per watt will also update. And now I'm using a rail that's strong enough to support 6-foot spans, but not needing to have to jump up into different size rails to accommodate for that. We can also update the landscape spans as well. That's going to be separate, so we can do that. And if we needed to know any information on the reaction forces, we can click this reaction force button and it'll show you that information here. As well as weights and loads. Total system weight, that'll include modules as well. Weight per attachment will also include modules. Racking weight is just our racking components. Distributor weight is everything inclusive. Okay. Once the spans and forces is completed, we will provide a roof section details, which essentially is just a summary around what we just entered into the design phase. And you can see that it breaks it down. Roof section 1 has 5 columns, and the rail length is going to be 18 foot 11 inches. Cantilevers, how many rails you'll need for this system, attachment splices, clamps. And because we have 2 rows of that, that's why it's multiplying it by 2. Okay. So once we're good reviewing this portion of things, we can then move on to the bill of materials page. At this point, we're done with designing our project. There's nothing else left we have to do on the design phase. This is just more of adding some additional parts if we need to do that, or any accessory pieces. So on this page, we do provide some additional features that allows you to select accessories as needed. So I wanted to do end clamps and MOPE hardware, as well as a J box or junction box. I can add that into the tool, save it. It'll populate in our bill of materials as well. We can also change the finish of the components and add any spares. We are aware that sometimes you may need some additional components because clamps will sometimes fall off the roof, right? Or you might lose them. So we can add that in there and it'll tell you the additional components in which are spares. And then inversely, there are cases where maybe there's a stock that we already have in-house and we don't need as much. You can also go negative and subtract additional parts.
Tony, can I just jump in here a second?
Of course.
There is a question that I'd like to interject right here. You may have talked about this before, but maybe you can make this point clear again. For a graphical design layout, as long as all array shapes are shown and the same roof plane, does proximity to other array shapes matter? Sorry if I missed this in the walkthrough.
No, I didn't mention this. That's a great question. So I think the question was, in the case where there is one really large grid and I decided to just add an additional array in here, whether or not that impacts the engineering or bill of materials. If I understand that question correctly, and please let me know in the chat if I misunderstood, but if I understood that correctly, it does not impact the bill of materials or engineering at all if you do it this way versus this way. It'll be the same. The only thing that would be different is in your reporting. So we do provide a project report at the end that'll display in this way. So if you did have to submit it, you could get pushback on it because of how it looks in the project report. So generally speaking, if you're just looking for a bill of materials and you don't need to submit any project report, this is totally fine. But if you need to submit the report in a way, then I would recommend separating them. Hopefully that helps. And great question.
Yeah, please keep those questions coming. And if you need a follow-up question, please just put it in a Q&A. Tony, there was another question that came up, and
Sure.
I think you may have talked about this a little bit. When we talk about the bill of materials, what formats are available for the bill of materials?
Yes. So in the bill of materials section, and thank you for bringing that up, there are a bunch of documentation that we offer once your project is completed. One of them being a bill of materials document. And you can get that in a PDF format or a CSV format. Sometimes, depending on the distributor, I'm not sure how BayWa prefers it, but from what I've heard, distributors prefer a CSV more than a PDF. So we offer both versions here. And to talk about some additional reporting or documents that we offer, one of them being a project report that I will show really quick. And then also, you'll notice that there's going to be some documentation on this. Whoops, sorry. I clicked on documentation on this side of the website. And the documentation is going to be tailored to your specific project. So all these documents are dynamically generated based off of your project. You see that the first document is a certification letter that we provide. It's a California XR10 rail cert letter that's pre-stamped. And it knows to pull this because we created a project in California and the rail we chose was XR10. If it was Colorado XR1000, then it'll dynamically update to that instead. As well as the components, it'll only show you components that are relevant in your project. Okay. And then I did want to show what the project report looks like really quick. So this is the project that we just created. It's essentially just going to be a summary of that design. So the project details, if you guys remember, then the system weight, load assumptions here, roof information that we entered, the roof plane. So you can see that for the person that asked a question around, does it matter if we put on the same roof plane? It doesn't, but you can see that if I just drew it on one roof plane, it'll have some additional empty cells and then show in a way that isn't pleasant to look at. But if I separated them, it's much more clean that way. So it breaks it down with some engineering values that we provide, then some images of the components that you've selected. This one was HUD that we chose. And then at the end will be a quick bill of materials. Okay. And then the last point I wanted to touch on, which we all were waiting for, is how the partner API works. And you'll see that on the bill of materials page, there's going to be this partners drop-down menu. When we click on that, we'll see a BayWa button that we can click on and then create a new quote. So we would just click on that. It'll take a couple of seconds to a minute. Now it's submitting that into the BayWa tool. And now I will pass it back over to Amber.
Great, thanks, Tony. Let me share my screen now. And let's see. Is that, oh. Can you see my screen? Daniela, can you see the BayWa dashboard here?
Yes, now we can see.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so back here on the account dashboard, over here in the quotes section will be any quote that you built on the design tool and sent over to our side. So if you click on quotes, you'll see your active and open quotes here. So we will click on this one. And this is what it will look like. So it will have all of the IronRidge items and the quantities that you selected for your design. And then you can quickly click review and place order. And you can check out here from the web store with everything you need for that design that you created. So really easy and pretty straightforward.
That is absolutely amazing. It looks like it does fit the definition or the desire to have it easy and fast and quick. In the web store, is there any ability to adjust the quote? And is it easy to do that?
Yeah, so if, for example, you wanted to add other items, so you wanted to add your panels or inverters, you would just hit copy, edit quote, and then you would be able to go in and add additional items to your quote and purchase those.
Fantastic. So it means literally having everything I need for the project and one step or a second step in that case, having everything out of one hand. That's fantastic.
Yes.
So maybe to both of you, a couple more questions. If someone has not used a design tool before, what are some of the things, some of the recommendations you would give to that person? What should they particularly pay attention to? What are some of the challenges to see that design tool will help handle?
Yeah, Tony, are you able to take
Sure.
that one?
Yeah, I can go first. I would say that making sure you have your information around what you're planning to design and what you're using for your project will be helpful, like the modules, right? What type of attachment you're going to be using, how you want your array to be laid out. Once you have all that information, it's as easy as just plugging and chugging into the tool and being done within 5 minutes or so, I would say.
That sounds really incredible, and I'd love to hear some of the experiences from our audience. So, if you want to put something in the Q&A, that would be wonderful. It's open, so we can ask any type of questions. Maybe a little bit of a provocative question for you, Tony. So, why would somebody need to work with your tool as opposed to other solutions that are out there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say that users will want to go with our tool because our tool is already incorporated with engineering. A lot of times, the tools that are out there right now, they don't have our engineering included into the tool, which involves them having to come here anyways to do it. So they would have to use that tool, come in here, design a project so that they can get a bill of materials, because usually that tool isn't connected to a BOM building component of it for racking portions. Yeah, so I would say that's the main thing, unless we've partnered with that company. Usually they would have to come here to create a bill of materials unless they have some sort of our engineering information in their platform, which no one really has. You would just have to pull that information up on our website and documents.
Excellent, thank you. There are a couple of questions about wind zones and exposed modules. Is there a chance we can go over this portion again?
Sure. Yeah, wind zones and exposed modules. I can do that. Let me
Thank
share
you.
my screen. I think someone's sharing, so I'm going to have to stop them. Okay. All right. I think I'm sharing now.
Yes, you are.
All right. So wind zones, exposure categories, I think you guys are referring to ASE 716. So for 710, we don't have that information in there because it's not required. When you change the code to ASE 716, you'll have a section that comes up for exposed modules, right? We do have diagrams on here that'll help explain what we mean by this. So generally speaking, for an exposed module, these red X's are what we consider exposed modules. So it's dependent on your building information. So in this example, your building height is 25 feet. If you have an array that looks like this and the gap is greater than 4 feet, then these two modules here are considered exposed, right? And then the other thing that would be considered exposed is if in this situation, this module, the distance to the edge of the roof is greater than 12.5 feet. And this is essentially half of your building height. So if this is greater than 12.5 feet, this module is exposed. If it's less than that, which is why these are not considered exposed. These are not considered exposed, but this one is. And then if there's a gap greater than 4, those are considered exposed. And then as far as roof wind zones, so you can toggle this on or off. If you have exposed modules, it'll just display that information for you. But as far as wind zones, you can go here and then click on the zone information. And we have another diagram that'll explain to you what roof zones are what. It's a little bit of a math problem, depending on your roof height. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Please let me know in the Q&A if you have a follow-up question. Tony, is there any, like these types of questions are like really specific and you have a lot of information in the design tool. Is there any support function that comes with the tool?
Yes. So we do have a tech support team, a live tech support team. As I mentioned, you can email them support@ironridge.com. We also have a phone number. Let me show my screen again really quick. But there is a tab here on the right-hand side. Here, that says support. And then you can reach the tech support team at 800-227-9523, extension 1, or email them at techsupport@ironridge.com. They're really quick to respond, but if you need an immediate assist, I would recommend calling. But as far as email, you still would get a response the same day. But if you need a fast response, I would consider calling in.
Excellent.
They're also very versed on our design assistant tool as well.
Super. There's another question because we had this case of a residential application. Is this product only for residential application or could it be used in a larger rooftop?
Sorry, I clicked on raise hand on accident when I was trying to share my screen. So it is not just for residential. That's just the demonstration I wanted to go over. But in the beginning of my talk, I mentioned that there are other design tools we offer. So if I wanted to do a tilt mounted system, I would just click on flat roof. If I wanted to do a balanced, they all start the same with this Google map. Or if I wanted to ground base, I can go into that. But we do have other design tools specifically for whatever design you're trying to work on. And the BayWa integration will work the same for all of them.
Fantastic. There is another question about the wind zones and exposed module information. So where the question is, where do we input this information?
Sure, yeah. So in this section, if I have an exposed module, it'll be clicking on this checkbox here, and then it'll tell you what the spans are for that specific situation. So it'll be a similar situation. You just want to make sure that the cases in which you are in that section, that you don't exceed the spans that we specify here. So since it's 5'6", we have to change it to 4-foot spans.
Thank you. There's another question. What do you recommend for attaching to concrete flat roof with 4 to 8 variable foam insulation top with TPO?
I think that might be more of a tech support question. I don't really have the answer to that one. So I would recommend reaching out to our tech support team. They may have some solutions for you.
That sounds great. Any more questions? There was a thank you for you for answering all the questions. So the Q&A is still open. Amber, I'd like to hand it over to you one more second to just bring it all together and what can this design tool integration do for our customers that's integrated in the Webstore?
Yeah, I think our web store is a place that we want to create efficiency for our customers. So besides the design tool, you have access to real-time pricing and availability. You are going to be able to check the status of your order, returns, make payments. I mean, there's so many things that our web store can do to create efficiency for your business. And obviously, this is one more component to it. So you're able to really log in, build a design, and then get that pricing back on our web store and checkout. So we want to save you time. We want to be a great partner for you. And our web store can definitely help you do that. So if you are not a customer with us, I know that Daniela, you're going to mention or put in the chat how they can contact us. And if you are a customer and you're not currently on the web store, please reach out to me or your account manager so that they can get you connected, get you a login so that you can start using the web store and start using this design tool.
Excellent. That sounds wonderful. I'm really excited to hear about this and our collaboration with IronRidge and making it even easier now to design your project and have everything per pushing a button, have everything in your quote and ready to purchase and be delivered. So that's super exciting. Please let us know what you think. Try out the tool, check out the web store and reach out with any questions. Just reply to one of the emails. Make sure you sign up to our mailing list. You can reach us. We're here for you. If there are no more questions, I think we can close this webinar. Tony, do you want to say a final word?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first off, thank you guys all for having me here. And just to echo what you said, any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our tech support team is always on call. So any questions, please reach out. We'll be more than happy to help.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Thank you, Tony, and your team for taking the time to introduce the tool today. Thank you, Amber, for explaining how it looks like on our end. Thanks, everybody. We are excited, and thank you for your partnership, Tony. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.